Show you how to do your band. Okay, so here's my hat. I have my 2-inch band for the right side, or the outside, and a 2 1/4 or 2.5 inch. I like to do 2.5 inch because of the way I tuck it, which I'll show you in a little bit. So you want to sew these two together. The way I like to do it is I like my big band on top, so I can sew down the right side, and that will let me I'll show you later when we oh shoot, well, number one, you don't want to have it on zigzag. Where's my seam ripper? Where's my best friend, my seam ripper? I'm assuming you've got one of these and have had to use it quite a bit learning. I think I went through about 10 of those while I was learning how to sew. So anyway, sew about 3 or 4 inches and then insert your bill. I top stitch on my bills to make them a little more sturdy, and I also use a stabilizer inside. This one is it's Pellin, and it's called Extra Firm Stabilizer, and the number on it's 926. But it's like still soft, and it just makes the bill keep its shape better, like after several washes and stuff. And it's soft, it's very pliable. So I insert my bill, the straight edge, going towards the straight edge of the outside that I'm sewing. And when you first start doing this, you might want to use pins and just pin the whole thing, but I've been doing it so long and thousands of them, I can do most of my stuff without pinning. The very last step in putting this bill on, I do pin. So just go all the way down to the end. Edges up here. Mine are always off, even though I measure the same. I measure the same for all hat sizes. I measure a 13-inch band cut on the fold, which when opened equals 26. But then when I make the different size hats, I know where to sew it on this next step to get it to the right circumference. Okay, so open this up and take your one end and match it up with the other end. With your good sides are on the inside. And I do use a pin for this. I just pin it like so. That's what's going to be your rest of the band. And I am doing a 7 1/4 inch cap, so I need to sew mine right here. I don't know what size your husband wears, so I'm sure you know the circumference and where to sew. If not, you'll figure it out. Okay. Pin out. So what you're left with looks like this. You can see there. Looks like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead now, we're going to attach it to the cap. So take the printed side where the bill is and fold your bill in half like this. And I just use my fingernail to kind of crease that fabric right there. I crease it, because then what you do is you get your hat and outside, and here's your center seam, which could be the front or the back, doesn't matter. There's the side seams. I do a 6 panel. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that little, where you did that, and you're going to match it up to the center seam. That way your bill will be perfectly centered. And then I go along and pin it a little bit. I don't pin mine all the way around. I used to when I first got started, but I know now where I like to start. I like to start where that seam is and go all the way around. And the reason I do that is because if I get almost to the end and I figure out that I've either made this too small or too big, I can rip it out and adjust it and sew it again. So just start with a straight stitch. Make sure everything's lined up. Your inside, your outside, and your band. Make sure you keep those all lined up. I do it to the end of the presser foot. Sew that. So this is my very first video I've ever made. So I might chit chat through it a little bit. And like I said, if you want to pin yours all the way around, by all means do it. I'm just used to not doing it now. I've made thousands of caps by now. And you don't have to iron the band. When I took my husband's cap apart, I thought the band had been ironed, and it may well have, I don't know. But what I found out is I've had to rip a few hats apart. And when I've sewn the hats and then I had to rip them apart, I found that after I sewed the band on and then ripped it off, it looked like I had ironed it. And I hadn't. Okay, let's see. Okay, see, now I didn't make this small enough, so I'm going to have to adjust it. Well, that never happens. See there? It's too big. I need to make that smaller so it fits the circumference. Because if I sew it now, it's going to have a big gap. So that's why I leave that like that. So I'm going to look and see how much I need to sew that. I need to do it right there. Kind of glad that didn't match up so I could show you what I meant by being able to adjust it. If it would have been too tight and not went all the way around, I would have had to ripped it out and sewn it. But since it was, let's see there, now it'll go. Now it'll all match up. Let's see. And you'll notice that I always start on one side when I'm doing the band of this seam here, just because if you do have to make some adjustments, it's easier just to rip that part out than to rip the whole thing apart. Okay, then this is what you're left with. Turn it. Ugh, why is my cutter? I got an automatic cutter in here and it's not cutting. I've also learned how to be a sewing machine mechanic. I can pretty well fix anything. Okay, so now you've got your hat like this. Okay, now what you want to do is fold that under to where you're going to get this pretty edge right there. And I just sew on top of that edge. I do a zigzag. Well, that's not a zigzag. I do a zigzag stitch because I just think it looks better, and to me it will I think it's more durable. And also, if you're not real good with sewing a straight line, if you're using a straight stitch, this stitch is a little more forgiving on showing whether or not you can sew straight or not. Or if you've been having a little bit of wine while you're sewing. You want to keep this don't want to see any orange up here. All the orange should be on the bottom. I'll show you when I'm done. Hey, puppy. I might have to turn this off and take my dog at OUT. I'm sure she knows what OUT is, though. Come on. Especially when you're top stitching, when you get to the end, you're going to want to what they call back stitch it. And I'm totally self-taught all this stuff too. I did sew a little bit of something in home ec back in the late 70s. Anyway, get to the very end. See how I just sewn over that seam that we made? So I went over my stitch a little bit. Now I'm going to go back and do a back stitch, and that locks it in place when I toe. But then I also do a forward thing I do, and I kind of hold it in place. I don't let it feed through, and then you end up getting this chunk of stitch there. That just gives me added security. And if you don't have a pair of these little snippers, I highly recommend them. I can actually hold these while I'm sewing, and they're easy to hold. I only found them at Hobby Lobby, and they come with a seam ripper. Found these are bigger, but they're just clunky. These I can keep in my hand and sew. Okay, so you're done with that. Now turn it inside out and see what we're left with. So what you want to do now is start at the seam, just fold it in, like that, and make sure it's on top of this. Make sure it's on top of that. So I'm basically matching up the edge. Sorry, it's kind of hard to do this with the stitching right there. And you're going to pin it. I pin mine from underneath because I tried pinning it from this side and sewing it, and for some reason the stitch on this side was like right at the edge, but when it was on this side it was like not where it needed to be. I don't know. If I were you though, I would try just pinning it on top and doing it until you get a kind of a handle on what you're doing, and then you can do what you want. Anyway, so you go all the way around and pin it. This is the last step. Yay, because I don't think I'm very good at this video stuff. I'm trying to look while I'm doing it and make sure you can see what I'm doing. It's kind of hard to do because you're trying to keep the other side kind of taut at the same time. I'm sure the first couple times you do this, you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll figure it out. If you've already taught yourself as much as you have, you're a pretty smart cookie. Oh, that was like me. I'm a fairly intelligent person, pretty mechanically inclined, always have been since I was a kid. It's like if I look at something long enough, I can figure it out. That's why I was telling you in my text that if I get aggravated with something, I put it away for a while because it like just gives me bad anxiety. But then I sit there and think about it the whole time of how to fix it. And then I figure it out. Okay, we're almost done. Yeah, I had to have something to do when we decided to go full-time because I've been a bartender for so many years and I couldn't sit dormant, and it's way too hard to start a new job and stop a new job, start a new job. And some places we didn't have access. When we was in North Carolina, we was in the mountains and was snowed in quite a bit of the time. So basically I started making these for my husband because he couldn't find them on the job site all the time, and it evolved from there. So I made a bunch. He would take them to work with him and sell them, and it was great because then I still have my own money. You know, I know it's his, mine, ours, theirs, but I still like making my own money too. So it just evolved from there, and I got my Facebook site. Okay, I'll flip it over. And again, find your seam on your band. It's usually this way. There's my seam on my band. And I'm going to start to one side of it, in case any adjustments have to be made. So anyway, I don't remember what I was saying. I got old-timer's disease. So anyway, like I said, yeah, I just evolved from there, and I got my Facebook site, and everybody kind of bitches at me a little bit, like, why don't you do Etsy and do this and do that? I have enough keeping up with this because I now have a couple of brothers that run Brotherhood nights. I make bulk orders for them, and then with my Facebook page, I have all that I can handle. I don't need to put any more on myself. And nor am I going to. And And actually, I started out on a little Singer as well. Then I got like a small Bernina, which are expensive as shit. When my husband bought me the Bernina, the sales lady was trying to talk him into this Brother. You see, I've got a Brother now. This is a Brother SE625, and it also is an embroiderer. And they're only, we paid $379 for this. I love this thing more than that $1,500 Burnett that I had. It's a off kick of Bernina. Their machines are in the thousands. But this is all I'm going to do with it. Everybody asks me, oh, can you make this? Can you make that? I'm like, nope. I can only make caps. Sorry. I mean, I do stuff for my family, but I'm not going to get into making and selling other stuff. This keeps me busy enough. Okay, and we're at the seam again. I try to snip as I go. Just makes it a little easier. And I sewed past it. And I'm going to go back stitch. And I'm going to go forward and hold it. There. And there you go. You'll have threads on the inside that need to be snipped. So, there's the inside of your cap. And here's the outside of your cap. I hope that helped you a little bit. Bye-bye.